What's up everybody? Today we finally got to see the long-awaited and teased addition to the Marvel Rivals roster, Moon Knight. In this video, I'm going to be going over his abilities, showing you how they work, watching through some gameplay, and also giving you some tips from a top 100 player. Starting off with his primary fire, where Moon Knight launches a crescent dart projectile forward. If a target is hit, the dart will bounce between the enemy and the Onks on the ground, dealing damage to everyone hit. If you're wondering what the heck an Onk is, we'll get into that in just a bit. His alternate fire is quite similar in the way it works. However, instead of unleashing darts, he launches a powerful moon blade that can bounce around instead. From what we can see, you aren't able to headshot with his right click though. As we've seen with most heroes, his primary fire does have a decent amount of fall off damage, so make sure you're not too far out of his effective range. Using his alternate fire right before his primary fire can surprise the enemy with a big amount of burst damage, so make sure to use them in tandem to catch enemies off guard. Keeping in the theme of Moon Knight, he has a couple passives similar to other heroes in the roster, where he can enter a gliding state and also has the ability to perform a double jump. Since Moon Knight fills the role of a duelist, this added mobility can be a big help to his kit. And speaking of mobility, his first ability is called Moonlight Hook. Not as fast as Spidey, but definitely helpful for getting out of bad positions or even setting up for sneaky plays. Now for his main ability, which we mentioned earlier, his Ancient Onk. Moon Knight fires an Onk which pulls enemies within the circle to its center. Shooting this Onk with your primary fire will allow this projectile to bounce at all enemies within the circle, allowing for almost guaranteed hits. As touched on previously, landing hits on the enemies will also bounce the dart to the Onk, creating a ripple effect. Moon Knight can have multiple of these out at a time, so he can rack up a ton of damage and map control with it. Whilst his Onk is small, it can be destroyed pretty quickly, so if you see an enemy Moon Knight trying to set up, make sure to destroy it ASAP. Moon Knight can have a maximum of 2 Onks out at once. If you're unsure how many you have out, there's an indicator on the left side of your screen. Onks aren't only restricted to the floor. You can actually place them on walls to better angle your damage and crowd control. Don't ever overlook the crowd control property of the Onks. I can definitely see this being useful to get flankers like Spider-Man or even Venom off you to give you enough time to flick to a wall and grapple away. Using this in 1v1s will allow his primary fire to bounce off the target to the Onk and back onto the target for some extra damage. The crowd control this also gives can definitely be used to set up engages, catch people out of position, and also work really well to set up and guarantee ultimates, especially his own. And well, speaking of the ultimate ability, Moon Knight's is called Hand of Khonshu. Moon Knight opens a portal that allows Khonshu to bombard enemies with his talons for 4 seconds. Using this in tandem with your Onk will absolutely decimate enemies. Currently, it seems like only 2 hits are really needed to get a kill on most targets, so combining that with the force pulled in from the Onk and your primary fire bouncing off of it, it looks like it'll be pretty tough to come out of this alive. When casting his ultimate in the air, it seems to give you the ability to hover, allowing you to set up the perfect ultimate. Don't stress about always using your Onk all the time. The sheer damage that the ability does can be enough to catch squishies either way. And fear not, all of you res haters, it is a perfect counter to Adam Warlock's ultimate. Alright, so that's everything for his abilities. Now I just wanted to go through some gameplay. I picked this fight in particular because I thought he used his abilities really well. And starting off, you can see the Onk really misplacing the enemy team, the front line and the Hela, and managing to push them back with the amount of poke that you can do simultaneously to multiple people. And this is where I talked about the burst earlier. Look at this amount of burst you can do against the Groot and really catch him off guard, pulling him in too when he's just getting low and sort of helpless really, and just managing to finish the job off. Using that grappling hook also is very, very good to get to high ground. As I said earlier, it's more of a repositioning tool than a get out of jail free card. And just look at that damage. Once again, you can just absolutely put out with Moon Knight. Using his ricochets from his Onk, the right click also manages to do a ton of damage. And this is where, Moon Knight really shines on grouped up teams, just being able to get so much damage in and so many kills. And there you go, bada bing, bada boom. This is another fight that I wanted to point out. As you can see, jiggling out from the cover, just trying to get some damage in. Just look at this damage that you can do with his ultimate, especially when you have your right click out, your left click done too. This is even without the Onks out too. So if you had his Onks down, even managing to, force people down into the ultimate area, the amount of damage you can do is absolutely insane. Yes, there is the rocket ult out, but even without the rocket ult, you can probably still decimate a team like that. Now, they've given us quite a lot of gameplay to actually go over, and it's really interesting here to see how Marvel Rivals dev team really make use of this character. And you saw the momentum that you could get from the grappling hook to just sort of give you the surprise angle to use the ultimate there, and you can see how deadly it can be. And it's quite impressive. I would have thought that a counter to Moon Knight, me personally data mining this, would be, since Moon Knight has such, it's poke damage. It's not really burst damage. Yeah, he has some moments where he can burst if he's got all his cooldowns up, but it's more poke damage. Somebody who would be taking the same sightlines as him, somebody who might be a menace to him really would be Hela, I would think. since he doesn't really get too close to close range to be like against a Punisher or anything like that. And I was wondering also, at first I thought, you know, he doesn't have any instant get out of jail free cards really. Like, you know, he doesn't have any like dashes, he doesn't have anything like that. He's got his grappling hook, but that's quite slow. So I thought maybe, you know, Black Panther would be a good counter to him. Maybe Spider-Man would be a good counter to him. But it's really hard to say because he does have, you know, his Onks. That was a lot of ultimates right there. He does have his Onks available, which can displace Spider-Man, can displace Black Panther, even Magic really. Maybe Magic might be able to time her TP, time her dash, so that she doesn't get affected by the Onk. I'm not sure if that actually is something to look out for really. But yeah, something else I wanted to talk about Moon Knight is his character design. I absolutely love this skin. Oh, look at the sheer damage that Moon Knight can bust out. Sorry, I'm just always so shocked by this. Even as a poke character, being able to just, yeah, because his damage in itself, single target damage, isn't too high. It's quite, you know, it's still a decent amount, but it's nothing too high. But being able to ricochet that damage off of another player and then have that bounce back and forth. Now, it can only ricochet up to 3 times, guys. So there is obviously a cap on that. It can't just ricochet infinitely. But obviously, you know, with the Onk down, with his right click available too, there's a lot of value you can get out of this. But yeah, like I said, if you're ever caught too aggressive, he might actually get caught out here. There you go. You got the double jump to jump over Groot's walls. Give yourself more mobility. He's also got his grappling hook, which you haven't really seen being used too much. As you can see, it's mostly just to, you know, get some elevation. As a poke character, like I mentioned, like Hela, like Moon Knight, really, you kind of want to be on these elevated planes. You want to be from high ground firing down, raining fire down, you know? Being able to, you know, land those headshots a lot easier, and just look at that damage once again, the surprise damage that can come out when you do have that Onk available. Now, as you can see right there, the grappling hook doesn't actually give that much mobility, doesn't actually give that much speed. It's very predictable, it's very, you know, it's nothing too crazy. Once again, that ult damage. Oh, you can definitely see he's a powerhouse. But yeah, I'm wondering now how he would fare against flankers. Unfortunately, none of the gameplay does show us against flankers. It's kind of like almost mirror comps. I mean, you know, the tanks are different. But, you know, there's Moon Knights on either side. Nothing really, you know, crazy. No, like, no Spider-Man, no Magics, no Black Panthers. And I feel like that's where Moon Knight might suffer. As a lot of heroes tend to do when they are poke styled. Like Hela also sort of suffers from this kind of same thing. Where Hela, you know, if a Spider-Man's on her, she can throw her E down, maybe, but that's like about it. And there's not too much she can do. I mean, you can bait it out quite easily. And that's another thing I think that Moon Knights are going to have to be aware of, because Moon Knight needs to use his Onks for that external pressure, for that offensive pressure, and being able to bounce around the damage as we were talking about earlier. Now, if he's using it offensively, he does have 2 in the, you know, 2 in the pocket that he could use. He could use 1 offensively, 1 defensively. But, you know, that's something you're going to have to be aware of, because if both of them are out, or both are on cooldown, really, he's just a sitting duck, realistically, because that grappling hook is not going to do too much for him. But yeah, that's all the gameplay we have, guys. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for hanging out. If you guys want some more Marvel Rivals content, be sure to subscribe, click that bell down, and let me know what you want down below. All right, take it easy. Peace.